hoes, men, women, children, whoever you are, everyone's welcome to it. Your boy Peter here, aka Peter Breakout Time, baby. Bring you guys episode of the Movie Review Show, where the good movies are always reviewed. Okay, back into our movie review. And continuing on with the Kevin Smith films. And for those who haven't kept up with the channel, last time we took a look at Kevin Smith's breakout feature Clerks. A film that in 1994 broke new grounds for indie filmmaking, comedy, and really showed Kevin Smith's talents as a director. And it was a film that, as I said in that review, I saw in a period of time in my life that was actually surprising that I wanted to see around that particular time. And it may be surprising to some people that that was a film I wanted to see around that time, being that I shouldn't have known about it considering the film's content. And there could have been other films for me to check out. And I guess I wouldn't have seen it if word didn't build it up as the film that it was. And the more I saw of it, the more I wanted to check it out. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why. But I saw it later on in life, and being someone who, as I said in that review, has experience with work that the film that movie shows off and understanding the pain of the characters, I loved it, and I love it even more now. If you want a deeper analysis as to why I love the film, check out my review, because I say it all in the review. Now we move on to Kevin's next movie, and boy, oh boy, this is the one where he thought everything was going to crash and burn. And what film is that, you may be asking? That film is none other than Mallrats. But does it deserve its reputation? Well, grab yourself a cookie, a cup of Coke, a chocolate-covered pretzel, and a roll of quarters, and let's talk Mallrats. Now, Mallrats, this is a film made in the year 1995, so a full year after Clerks, and as I said, written and directed by Kevin Smith. And the idea for this film actually came about right in the middle of Clerks' production, this being around the time they had shown the film off at the Sundance Film Festival, and it was picked up by the Weinsteins. They were both, Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, were at the after party, and they were approached by producer James Jacks, who was at the moment associated with Universal. James Jacks, this is a guy who's had his hand in some great films like Raising Arizona, Dazed and Confused, and the awesome Hard Target. He was impressed by their work on Clerks and wanted to rope them both into a project so they could work with Universal, as at that moment they were questioning where they were going to go with their next movie. The two began to think about ideas and started an outline for a script that they called Mallrats that they spent 2 months working on ideas with, and they approached him with the idea of it, which they described as Clerks in a mall, with the main objective being to make what they called a smart Porky's. The reason being was they wanted to go back to the days of those sort of raunchy comedies like Animal House and Caddyshack that they felt people were lacking the sight of those types of comedies in the mid-90s, and PG-13 was becoming the norm with comedies. And this especially excited Kevin because it would be a big studio film delivering it. However, once the script was shown off, Universal, despite liking it, really started to take a hands-on approach with it, insisting that despite going for an R rating, Kevin should rewrite the script to lower down on the cuss words, as they wanted the film to feel a bit more mainstream for audiences, something that Kevin at first tried to fight against, but eventually relented, realizing they were right. Once the script was edited to make it more mainstream, Universal finally allowed the film to get into production with a $6 million budget, something that Kevin also tried to fight against, being that he is very budget conscious, but Universal insisted that the budget be as big as it is to make it feel more like a movie, even though Kevin insisted that we made a movie with the low budget we had in Clerks. However, their response was that wasn't a movie. Kevin eventually relented and took the budget and started to get the cast together, with some actors, much like Clerks, having no prior acting experience. This was another area Universal got their hands on, with insisting that Shannen Doherty be cast due to her being the hottest thing at the time, as she was on Beverly Hills 90210, or they weren't going to let the movie go forward. Kevin, while writing Clerks, was a fan of the show and would frequent the show on TV while at his job at the convenience store. And upon meeting her, she let it out that she was a fan of Clerks and was excited to work with him and agreed to come on. However, another area that they actually tried to get involved with was Jason Mewes, as they hated his acting. They were lobbying for Jay to go to Seth Green for some star power. They tried to get Breckin Meyer, as well as a few other people, which even they were like, this is for Jason Mewes. Why are you asking me to come on to replace him? Which led to Kevin having to fight for Jason till the studio relented, saying he can join, but they weren't paying for his hotel or giving him paychecks, something that they later apologized to Kevin for, as the dailies, when they were coming out, they all made it clear that maybe we were wrong about Jason and apologized to Kevin as the film was going on. Once that was taken care of, they began production. Kevin originally intended for the film to be shot at the Seaview Square Mall in New Jersey, but due to lower production costs, they had to move the film to Eden Prairie Mall in Minnesota. Because they were shooting in Minnesota and the film is supposed to take place in New Jersey, and when filming the exterior shots, they would stick paper on the license plate and make them look like New Jersey license plate. Occasionally, unbeknownst to the people in those cars, they would drive away with the fake license plates. Despite not shooting in New Jersey, the team used this to their advantage, as there was a lot of vacant storefronts in the mall, which allowed them to get creative with the stores. The cast and crew had a lot of fun making this film, as Kevin took the time to really get to know them and really became a friend of theirs. And things started to go well until Universal started to once again put their grubby fingers on the movie, forcing Kevin to shoot more goofier scenes that he didn't want to have in the film, in particular the fortune teller moment, as they felt that was the type of humor kids wanted to see. Shooting lasted for a certain amount of time, and when they screened the film, the audience liked it, but they hated the opening, forcing Kevin to go back and reshoot the opening. They screened the film again with the new opening, and it got a better response, especially at the Comic-Con, which people cheered at the film for. Now, this film did have a marketing campaign, but this is where I really think Universal failed the film, and I think this sealed the film's fate. Because after it was finished, Universal had no idea how to market the film. Gramercy didn't, and they were unsure about the poster. They were constantly turning to Kevin Smith, asking how to market the film, making a poster that they would constantly... making posters that they would constantly show off them and he didn't like, which didn't tell a lot about the film. The ads were also poorly done, as they were just going around the street asking people in ads, do you know what a Mallrat is? And nowhere in the ads, I think this also kind of played in the film's failure, nowhere in the ads did they mention from the director of Clerks. I think that would have got some people more interested in the film, and it would have gotten it some money. Because I think people didn't know that this was going to be Kevin Smith's next movie. And on top of that, the only thing that I know that this film did have to market it was MTV, as I know they did a special where they were at the premiere of it. But I think Kevin knew the film's fate was sealed when marketing really did a shitty job with it. And his troubles were confirmed as the film was released on October 20th, 1995, and it crashed and burned, man. Opening to number 13 in its opening weekend. It made only over $1 million, and it finished its run with only over $2 million. So it didn't even get half of its budget back. On top of that, the film took a beating from critics, despite on Rotten Tomatoes as a 58%. I think that has a lot to do with what came later. But at the time, critics hated this film, as a lot of the reviewers criticized the film unfavorably to Clerks, criticizing the goofier tone, and the actors, which they didn't feel were as human as Clerks' characters, and just deeming it not as funny as Clerks, with even a Siskel and Ebert review where they awarded it 2 thumbs down, with Gene Siskel insisting people stay home and rent Clerks instead of seeing this movie. and Roger Ebert giving it a 1.5 stars, saying the film feels more like a sitcom and less like the down-to-earth Clerks was. I know Kevin took the reviews personally, as well as I think because of it bombing so hard, I think he feared that this was going to be the end of his film career. And I think this played into why he went back to Miramax and to make Chasing Amy, because the Weinsteins weren't as on top of him as I think the big studio was with this movie. So I think that kind of played into, especially the fact that they allowed him to work with a small budget again. However, after the film left theaters, it became a big seller on video and later came on DVD, this one in particular. It actually grew a cult following, with some people even saying it's their favorite Kevin Smith film. This actually came out after the film. I know there was a fan site that was petitioning to get this film on DVD, and this is it. This is actually the Universal Collector's Edition, which very nice DVD. Get a feature commentary with director Kevin Smith, cast members Ben Affleck, Jason Mewes, producer Scott Mosier, Vincent Pereira, over 1 hour of deleted scenes, live footage from feature commentary session, a featurette talking about, which I actually watched. Very nice sit down with the guys talking about the film. They're proud of the film, which makes me happy because I have some stuff to say about that. But along with the soundtrack, which I do want to get, and some production photos from back in the day, definitely nice to have this. But nice that Universal saw that this film is gaining a cult following. But besides that, the audience side is an 82% on IMDb, is a 7 out of 10. While lower than Clerks, still good for this type of film that got railroaded and bombed in theaters. Now, before I came on and did this review, I was actually reading an article where they were talking about Mallrats on its anniversary. And I'll be honest, they pointed out something that I really feel ties into why they feel this film bombed, because even the cast can't find a reason why the film bombed. But what they pointed out, I think I agree with too, because this film did not have a good footing when it came out in theaters, because the studio didn't know what kind of movie they had, so they just marketed it as another stupid comedy in the mall. But I don't think that sold the true heart of the film. I definitely don't think that. I think that had it been marketed as Kevin Smith's next film following Clerks, I think it would have at least broke even. Because this film did not deserve to bomb. Obviously, it wasn't going to be one of the top 10 of the year, but I think it would have been a bigger hit than what it was. I mean, there still probably would have been the hate that critics gave it, but I think the money that it got back, I don't think Kevin would have saw it as this huge failure that he was talking about, that he saw it as for the longest time till the cult following happened. Because I just think critics just saw this film and they were like, oh, he went from Clerks, this smart movie, to this high school John Hughes kind of movie. I don't think audiences wanted that. I think they wanted the same smartness of Clerks. But I don't care about that. I don't care. I think, honestly, I saw this film right after I saw Clerks. I got the VHS. I didn't even know it was a sequel to that film until doing some digging. But I got the film. Obviously, I got the DVD right here. I upgraded it. But I put it on one night, and I gotta admit this. I may get a lot of Kevin Smith fans looking at me like, what? But of the Kevin Smith movies, I haven't seen Dogma yet. I'll give my thoughts soon. But I'm going to be brutally honest here. This one is my favorite of his films. I love this movie. I'll even go as far as to say it's one of my favorite comedies and one of my all-time favorite movies. It's a film that every time I watch it and I put it on, it puts a smile on my face. And I'm almost close to saying that I like this more than Clerks. Okay, maybe that's stretching it a bit too far, but I definitely think it's a funnier movie. I think here is the best way for me to describe this. Clerks is a better movie. It's more down to earth and more of a commentary on people in the workplace. But I think why Mallrats works more is that it's a funnier movie to me. And it's a more cartoony movie. And I think it was the right way to go. I think Kevin and Scott sort of knew that, you know what, we can't do better than Clerks, so we'll make our version of a John Hughes movie, or a R-rated John Hughes movie, however you want to say it. But I think the product turned out well, and I don't think it deserved the bashing that it got. Because I've heard people say this film is soulless, it's Kevin's worst movie. Like, some of them, I'm just like, are you fucking serious, dude? I just don't get it. I mean, I don't get the praise for the next one, and I'll talk about that later. You'll see my thoughts on that one. I know that's going to be controversial, but I put this above Chasing Amy. Yeah, you heard me. I like this more than Chasing Amy. I know that's quite the thing to say, but I'll talk about that another time. Right now, we're talking about Mallrats. I'll get into why I love this film later. But getting into the cast in this film, like I said, you got Shannen Doherty as Renee. Shannen Doherty, this is a woman who has been in films like The Secret of Nim as one of the daughters of Miss Brisby. She was in Heathers. You have Jason Lee, who actually got his start doing skateboarding videos and was also in a film that Kevin Smith produced called Drawing Flies. And he would work with Kevin Smith again on Chasing Amy and Dogma. He also had a small role in Enemy of the State. You have Jeremy London, who was actually Jason London's brother, and he was on TV's Party of Five. You have Claire Forlani, who before this was in Police Academy Mission to Moscow. Not the best start. You have Michael Rooker from Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. He also was in The Bone Collector. You have Jason Mewes reprising his role from Clerks as Jay, and of course Silent Bob is here. You also have small roles from Joey Lauren Adams, who would become Kevin Smith's girlfriend at the time and would go on to be in Chasing Amy, and of course Big Daddy. Ben Affleck, a very young Ben Affleck from Armageddon, and he would go on to win an Oscar and an award for Good Will Hunting. Ethan Suplee in his film debut. You also have Sven Ole Thorsen, who was in On Deadly Ground, and he was also in The Running Man. And you also have a small role from comic book creator Stan Lee. Yeah. So we working with a good cast on this movie. Now, the plot of Mallrats is we meet this guy named Brody, played by Jason Lee, who is an avid comic book nerd that gives more attention to that side of life than actually growing up and evolving, or his girlfriend Renee, played by Shannen Doherty, who one day, not being able to take his bullshit anymore, dumps him. Around the same time this is going on, we also meet this kid named T.S., played by Jeremy London, whose last name is actually Quint, as a nod to Joss, which actually plays into the story. And he's a good boyfriend to Brandy, played by Claire Forlani, but at the same time, he's also looked at with daggers in the eyes of her father, played by Michael Rooker. And we find out that he hosts this game show, which is basically this dating game show, and the woman who was supposed to be that girl that was going to pick the person, she ends up dying because of something he said, and this leads to an argument between the two, and they end up breaking up. Deciding not to sulk in a puddle of their own tears, they decide they're going to retreat to the mall to get their mind off stuff. But their land of happiness doesn't last for long, as they do discover that they can't escape from their girlfriends as the game show is happening in the mall, and that Renee is also at the mall going out with one of Brody's rivals, Shannon, played by Ben Affleck. So now the two are basically trying to win their girlfriends back with the help of Jay and Silent Bob, of course, played by Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith. Will the two be able to win their girlfriends back, or will they continue to sulk further into a state of depression at a place where happiness is supposed to be found? I disagree with Roger Ebert's review saying Mallrats lack the down-to-earth aspect of Clerks, because when you really sit down and watch it, Kevin Smith's touch still feels present in this movie. It's just delivered in a different way to get that across. Whereas when you watch Clerks, it operates on advancing the story through not only comedy, but also, as I said in my review, this punch-to-the-gut, harsh reality vibe of showing that there are some people who want to evolve through reality and want to evolve to bigger and better things but don't know how to. Mallrats evolves its story more through a Hollywood setup and a bit more over-the-top Looney Tunes-esque moments, especially in the Jay and Silent Bob moments where they're trying to trash the stage or beating up the Easter Bunny. I think the best way to get this point across is two other movies did the same thing. Tommy Boy and Black Sheep. Now, Tommy Boy, the thing with Tommy Boy is there's comedy, but the comedy comes from David and Chris's banter together, and it's also really emotional and really down to earth in its comedy. Black Sheep is more slapstick, more pratfalls with Chris Farley falling down the hill. It has the emotional moments there, but it's delivered in a different way. But both still feel like the touch is still there. And I think the same applies here. As the movie, much like Clerks, has a sense of levity to it. And I think it still gives the characters a sense of relatability. In particular, Brody, who I think a lot of us have felt like at some point, with him kind of putting comic books before his girlfriend. As you kind of see, he doesn't really realize he's doing that. I think a lot of people have done that at some point. And you get the idea that he's just being in his comfort zone. He's doing what makes him happy, and you can't fault him for that. And I really related to that, as I felt like that at one point. I felt like, I wanted to retreat to my happy zone, and I didn't realize I was putting that before anyone else. So I like that aspect. But at the same time, you do feel for his girlfriend, and you would understand why she would break up with him. And it really kicks off him going into this arc of learning that both can exist, and that you shouldn't let the one you love go, as he goes through this day at the mall. And you also have T.S., who learns to have a backbone, learns to speak his mind for his girlfriend and not feel intimidated by her father, which I think you would understand why he would feel that way about her father, especially when you see how much of a dick he is. And I think anyone who's been with a girlfriend who has had a father who didn't like them, anybody can relate to that. So I think Kevin's characters still hold on to the relatability of Clerks. It's just done with a more John Hughes-like approach as opposed to the adults with Clerks. But I like that. I thought it made it stand on its own. And I feel like because we're focusing on different characters as opposed to Clerks, I think the difference in tone is going to represent the characters' personalities and this part of the town of New Jersey. And I thought it worked. I really thought it worked, and it kept me engaged. Along with that, I also like that this movie is a big love letter to comic books, as you'll hear the characters talking about comics, with Brody, his bedroom having all those posters, and how he's big on superhero sex organ. You see him really going out of his way to really show that he loves comics as a medium, like the scene at the thrift store where he's telling the woman to put some boards in the comics. You can see Kevin's love for comics and comic books as a medium here, and it's all in this movie. And it was a very refreshing touch, as not too many movies around this time have used them as a theme for this movie. And I like that the film kind of goes for the same setup as Clerks, with the sort of everyday activities that you would see people doing in the mall, whether it's people hanging out or just going into different stores and all that, or doing something crazy there, especially with like Ethan Suplee at the weird picture things that he's looking at, and everybody keeps seeing the sailboat before he does. Like you have this one scene where these kids come up and they point out that it's a sailboat, and he goes, "You know what? There is no Easter Bunny! Over there, that's just a guy in a suit!" That was hilarious. So the normal occurrences that you would see in a mall are there. They're just done in a way that's more over the top. And I liked that. Again, I think the comedy worked for this film. It worked for the setting. And It was just funny, even in the dialogue. I still feel the smart dialogue is there, especially in Brody and TS's, like when they're talking about Wonder Woman and Superman kind of getting together and how it would take her to hold his baby. And he goes, how did I go from a trip with this girl to talking about stuff at the food court? And he goes on about how the cookie stand is not part of the food court and that the food court is upstairs and that the cookie stand is for mid-mall snacking. That was funny. And I think, honestly, when it comes down to it, when you consider what Kevin had to deal with Universal and Gramercy, who wanted a more commercial film, I think he managed to get the best of both worlds with this movie, and I still think he created a great story that I think fits well in the View Askew universe. Now, on a technical side, I think this is a greatly directed film. I think despite not wanting a larger budget, I think Kevin works well with the budget he was given. His directing definitely improved from Clerks, and he manages to fine-tune it in a way that fits the tone of this movie's personality. I think he makes great use of the mall setting to create some great comedic situations, especially in the Jay and Silent Bob moments. There's a lot of energy to the moments that require a lot of physical comedy, and he uses the directing to get across the cartoony nature of the movie. Like the one scene when Jay is going over his plans to destroy the stage, and they're going over these blueprints that look sort of akin to Tom and Jerry or Wile E. Coyote, and they're talking about the plans and how they're going to take down the guards, and just how that was shot, where it's going like this over the blueprints, or when he's going on the friggin' toy car through the store and it's told through like this first person view as it gets closer, or the close-up of Silent Bob's face when he crashes through, something akin to one of those cartoons. So his use of the camera has a lot of energy, and I think it gives the film this wacky charm that I can't help but love. And I think it's more of my style as opposed to Clerks. Even though Clerks, I said, had great directing that I think fit the tone of that film and worked there, Mallrats is just more of my film and how it was directed. And I also think the mall that they chose looks nice. I think they do a great job hiding that it's not New Jersey. It's definitely a cozy mall. I like the atmosphere that they gave it. I think it's very nice looking. And the fake stores that they were able to get in there, I don't detract from the film. And just all around, would love to go and shop there. And even the film's opening credits I thought were cool. I like the opening with these characters and how they're like comic books and their personalities are represented. And I like the song choice, Social by Squirt Guns. There's social norms and social rules. We're social scum. They're social tools. I think it fit the tone of the film. I think it fit the message of the film and everything. And it has a great soundtrack. Speaking of that, I think it really got some great talent in there, such as Silverchair. I like the song Stone that they did. You got me stoned, sitting in my bedroom spinning, or Wax, Sublime. There's even the Build Me Up Buttercup song. So, yeah, I think this film deserves a lot more credit with Kevin's directing than what he got. Because for as different as it is from Clerks in the tone department and how he directed, I don't think that makes it a bad film at all. It makes it a different film, but different doesn't always mean bad. But none of it would be done as well if it wasn't for the great cast that they got for this movie. And I think that starts with the main reason I love this film. And it's probably the thing that I feel a lot of people will agree with me on, and it's why the film is remembered as fondly as it is. And that is Jason Lee as Brody. For a guy who didn't have as much acting experience before this and was just a skateboarder, much like the cast in Clerks were, I think he does a great job. And I'll go a step further. I think he does better in this than he does in Chasing Amy. I don't hate him in Chasing Amy, but I thought he was a lot more likable here. He gave Brody this real dry, wise-ass personality that made him entertaining and easy to get behind. And I like the fact that he's this guy who has spent so much time in a mall that he can tell you everything about it. I think Jason made that work well to his advantage. I like the stuff he's talking about with the comic books and just how infatuated he is with it. It didn't come across annoying or a know-it-all. It just came across as normal, and I thought he had some really funny lines, like the back and forth with Renee at the store when he's talking about, okay, since you left me, we gotta lay down some ground rules. First off, you have my stuff, like my Punisher War Journal, my TV remote, and all this and that. And then later on, they get into another argument in the elevator, and he's talking about how, why are you going out with Coverboy? And she's like, none of your goddamn business, but he'll kick your ass and all this. And then he goes, are you insane? The guy looks like a date rapist. That had me dying. Jason Lee, you can tell, is having a lot of fun with this character, and I'm glad on the DVD he's still proud of the movie and didn't let the fact that it bombed ruin the experience for him, and he still stands by that he had fun making the movie. So I really feel if anybody else played this character, I don't think they would do it as well as Jason Lee. So I think Kevin made the right call. Shannen Doherty, I love that she's this girlfriend who doesn't take shit. She's willing to do what she can to make the relationship work, but is not afraid to stand her ground and give a fuck you attitude, is willing to tell it like it is to Brody. She's willing to say how much of a retard he is, and constantly had to put up with Brody making everything about himself. Like, she talks about how she went to many stores with him, went to the restaurants that he wanted to go to, as he's kind of making everything about himself. But I think she delivered it in a way that you understood her, and it was angry but naturally angry, and I think she got across that believably, including that scene in the elevator where she's arguing with him and she says, you think I give a shit about comic book characters crossing over? I'm a girl, damn it, I want to do girl things, which is ironic because girls have gotten into that after this movie, so could have waited a bit more and seen that, Shannen. But Shannen did it well, and it's easy to see why she got uncharmed, because she's a talented actress, and I think her and Jason work well off each other, kind of having this sort of toxic relationship that is trying to mend itself, and Brody's trying to rebuild it, but at the same time doesn't want to acknowledge that it's hurting him. I think they really did well with that. Jeremy London, I know there's reports, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently Kevin did not like working with Jeremy London. If anybody knows that to be true, let me know in the comments below. But I think for this film, despite that, he did well for what he had to do. He's blown off the screen by Jason Lee because Jason Lee has this energy that kind of pushes him to the side. But I still think he did well for what he had to do. He's meant to be the more laid back of the two, less of the energized one, more of the smart one, more of the one coming to his own conclusions. And for that, I think he gets the job done. Claire Forlani, she's all right. I do think Shannen Doherty did the girlfriend thing better because she's on screen a bit more and has more to work with, whereas Claire's a little bit absent from the film, as a little bit more is explored towards the end, but she's fine. There's some points, though, she does come across a bit mousy in some areas, but this is only her second film, so I can't fault her for that, and she probably has gotten better as an actress. But again, she's fine. Michael Rooker, though, as her dad, was a hoot to watch. He's over the top, but it's a funny over the top, and I think it worked for the character that he was trying to portray, especially with how just brooding he comes across, and just how he's willing to do anything to keep this guy from seeing his daughter, and kind of has this supervillain-esque sort of hysteria to him that makes it funnier. Like when he's talking to TS and he's like, I know you slithered your way into my daughter's panties. And he's saying this in such a just a brooding way that it makes that line funny. So Michael Rooker's great fun in this film. Ben Affleck, I have to say, as Shannen, he plays a douche, and it's funny seeing him play a douche when you look at him in, like, Armageddon, where he's a nice guy, but he's constantly getting in fights with Brody, and he keeps sleeping with women in the mall, and talking about how he's gonna screw them in an uncomfortable place. It's like, what the fuck? But it's funny as fuck because of Ben's delivery and just how he's this steroid abusing, toxic guy that it just makes it funnier. And it's funny, I'll be honest, I got more entertainment out of him in this than I did with Chasing Amy. That's one of the biggest problems I have with that film that I'll get into is his character, Holden. But if people like that's fine. But I think he was much better in this. But other actors, you got Joey Lauren Adams as this girl who sleeps with a lot of guys in the mall. She's not playing the same character she does in Chasing Amy. She's a girl named Gwen. And she keeps trying on clothes at the mall. There's a scene of her where she attempts to change in a changing room and Silent Bob busts through twice, so she has to change outside. That was funny. Ethan Suplee was a lot of fun as the guy looking at the picture and everybody keeps telling him that it's a sailboat. That got the most laughs out of me, his scene, and just how he's this friggin' troll in the mall just looking at it, or looks like a troll in the mall with the weird mustard t-shirt. He's great fun. Jason Mewes and, of course, Kevin Smith as Jay and Silent Bob, they're a ton of fun to watch. I'll be honest, of these three films, I think they're the funniest in this one. I think they get that Kevin and Jason get the most out of the story in this one, including the scenes of them trashing the mall, doing all this crazy stuff. I think that they have some great lines together, like when he's talking about the plan and he's like, I would have done it, but I broke my back last night fucking your mom. That's funny. Sven Ole Thorsen as LaForce, the security guard for Michael Rooker. He's great fun in this. Definitely a brooding sort of guy that doesn't talk. It's funny seeing him here when I'm so used to him in these action films. Renee Humphrey as this girl that they meet who sleeps with older men at the mall for this book she's writing. She's good for what she had to do. I like that she calls Jason Lee's character Sega Boy. That got a good chuckle out of me. Priscilla Barnes as this topless fortune teller they go to. Get to see Priscilla Barnes topless. I will say that scene in particular, I could have done without. Just wasn't funny. That is one complaint I will say about this film. There is a couple moments of humor that doesn't always work, whether it's the opening where I have to see Michael Rooker's ass, or those were the least funny moments for me. But for the most part, the humor is fine, and they're not the problem in those moments. Just, you can tell that those moments were added on. But last but not least of the cast is Stan Lee as himself in a cameo, which I thought he was fantastic. I like Stan Lee's little part in this. It's Stan Lee being Stan Lee, so I can't fault it for that. But I like that he's sort of the voice of reason to Brody, telling him to get back with his girlfriend. I think that it's cool to see him take on this sort of role, and I'm glad he did it, because Kevin was going to originally get someone else to do it until he met Stan Lee and was like, do you want to do this movie I'm doing? Stan didn't want to do it, but Kevin talked him into it, so it was nice to see Stan Lee in this sort of movie. So overall, great cast. But yeah, I love this movie. And I never got the hate that this movie got. And it's been this go-to comedy for me for the past few years, ever since I left high school. I got the poster over there. I had a t-shirt that was purple and it had Mallrats on it. So of Kevin Smith's films so far, we'll see how Dogma is. This is my favorite one. So yeah. I mean, I mentioned some of the problems that I had, like not all the humor works. I do wish Claire Forlani had some more scenes on screen with her. But those are really my only problems with the film. It's just two problems, and I think all around, besides those problems. Bottom line, and I'm going to say this right here. People love to say comedy is subjective. That's a rule, and it'll always be a rule. People say they have their own form of comedy that they find funny. And they have that one movie that they find one of or the funniest movie ever made. So that's where I'm going to state something. For me, Mallrats is one of those films with its love letter to comic books as a medium, smart dialogue, great acting. Mallrats, to me, is one of the funniest movies of all time. It doesn't need to be Clerks. It was never trying to be Clerks, and it never will be, but I see that as a strength because I can still put this on and have a great time watching it in its own way. So if you saw Clerks and really enjoyed it and you want to see what Kevin does next, I highly recommend you check out Mallrats. Just don't go in, if you check this out, don't go in with the mindset of this is another Clerks. Just go in with the mindset that this is Kevin's version of a John Hughes movie, and you'll have a great time. I think a lot of people didn't see that when this came out, and I think that's contributed to the bad reviews. But I think the second life that this film is getting is allowing people to have a fun time with it and see the film for what it is. A great, funny-ass time. So when it comes down to the final verdict, I give Mallrats a 9.7 out of 10. And it deserves it. Therefore gets the Alexandra seal of approval. Definitely, I think, a classic. Have I pissed you off yet, Kevin Smith fans? Hope I didn't, but if you are, it's my opinion. Sorry. That is my review for Mallrats, and to finish up the Kevin Smith marathon, if you guys hate me for my thoughts on Mallrats, next time we're going to talk about Chasing Amy, and boy, oh boy, regarding the reputation that this film has, I think I'm going to piss a lot of people off with my thoughts on this movie. But again, if you like the film, that's fine. If you dislike it, that's fine too. But I'll see my thoughts on it later. But then afterwards, I got the End of Days review being written up. That's coming. But then I got Dogma coming, and I will do a review on Fight Club once I see that. But yeah, that's what's to come soon. More parts will be coming for Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I'm just trying to get these done before the holiday. These might be pre-uploaded later or after the holidays, but still trying to get as much as I can done before the holidays so I can take a couple days break. But for right now, I will see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Mallrats. Is this your favorite Kevin Smith film? Do you like Chasing Amy more? I'd love to know you guys' thoughts down below. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.